I don't really know how to start this story. Maybe because part of me still doesn't believe it's real. Maybe because writing it down means admitting that the life I had, the one I thought was solid, unshakable, even happy, it's gone now. Or maybe it's because there's a small part of me deep down, still holding on to the idea that things could go back to how they were. Even when I know they never will. My name's Eric. I'm 33 years old. For the past 10 years, I was married to someone I truly believed was my soulmate, Allison. We met at work, both fresh immigrants trying to build a life in a new country. We didn't have anyone here. No family to lean on. Just each other. That bond, it felt sacred. We built everything together, our careers, our home, our routines, our silly inside jokes. We even bought a small house. No kids yet, but we talked about it sometimes. Not seriously, more like dreams floating in the background. Everything felt stable. And I guess that's what made the ground beneath me vanish when she sat across from me one evening, her hands shaking slightly, and said the words I never expected to hear. I think I'm not bi, Eric. I think I'm actually a lesbian. I remember that moment in strange detail. The way the ceiling fan buzzed softly above us. The untouched tea going cold between us. The way my stomach twisted so hard I thought I might throw up. I didn't say anything for a while. I just stared at her. She wasn't crying. She wasn't angry. She looked exhausted. Like she'd been carrying this truth inside her for years and finally let it slip out. And then the part that changed everything. There's someone. A woman. I've been seeing her. She said it softly, but it felt like thunder in my ears. Now, before you think she cheated, I need to be clear. She didn't lie to me. At least, not directly. Months ago, we had agreed to explore outside the marriage. It was more of a quiet understanding than a spoken agreement. We were both feeling disconnected. At first, we blamed work, stress, the pandemic hangover. But intimacy had faded. And instead of fights, there was silence. That kind of silence that hums just beneath the surface. Loud enough to hear, quiet enough to ignore. So we said it out loud one night. Maybe we could try seeing other people. Just to understand what we were missing. Maybe it'd help us find our way back to each other. She found someone first. A woman. A soft-spoken, artistic type, from what little Allison told me. It started casually. But somewhere along the way, Allison realized something terrifying for both of us. That she had never truly been attracted to men. Not physically. Not romantically. Not me. Even then, I didn't get angry. I wish I could say I flipped the table, yelled, walked out and slammed the door like in the movies. But I didn't. I sat there. Stunned. Silent. Hollow. I've never had the best self-esteem. Even in college, I always felt like I wasn't enough. Too quiet, too average, not exciting. I never thought a woman like Allison would look at me twice. And when she did, when we got married, it felt like I finally beat that voice in my head that kept saying I wasn't worth much. Now, that voice is back. Louder than ever. But here's the twist no one expects. I didn't leave her. I couldn't. Even after she told me she loved someone else. Even after she told me she'd never be able to be intimate with me again. I couldn't leave. What? Because I still loved her. That's the brutal part. I loved her more than I could explain. I loved our mornings together, our stupid grocery store jokes, the way she'd fall asleep on the couch halfway through a movie. I loved who we were. And I didn't want to let that go. So we talked. We decided, painfully, awkwardly, that we would try to stay close. Not as lovers, not as husband and wife in the traditional sense, but as companions? Friends? Something in between. We would support each other while searching for people we were truly compatible with. A strange modern setup, I guess. Open marriage. Emotional roommates. But God, the loneliness. I'd lay in bed, hearing her laugh on the phone in the other room. And I knew who she was talking to. I'd walk past her door and see a half-packed overnight bag, knowing she was going to spend the weekend with someone who made her feel alive in a way I never could. And me? I just sat in that silence. Eventually, I tried to put myself out there. I downloaded some apps, half-heartedly swiped through profiles, barely knowing what I was even looking for. Until I met someone. Online. Her name was Maya. She was smart, funny, beautiful in a different way than Allison. She had this spark, this effortless way of making me feel seen. We started texting late into the night, sharing memes, dumb stories, bits of ourselves. And before I knew it, I was smiling again, laughing again, feeling again. Something was waking up inside me. Something I thought I'd buried. So I decided to be honest with her. I told her everything. That I was still technically married. That my wife was a lesbian. That we were emotionally separating but still living together. That we were trying to navigate this strange, blurry situation. And I'll be honest, it didn't go well. She pulled back. Politely but firmly. Said she needed space. Said it was a lot to process. And I don't blame her. Who the hell wants to get involved in a mess like mine? But then she asked me something. What do you really want, Eric? And I didn't know how to answer. Because how do you let go of someone you still love? Someone who was your whole world for a decade. How do you unlove a person who never stopped being kind to you, but just can't be what you need anymore? And more importantly, how do you stop hoping that maybe, just maybe, they'll wake up one day and realize they made a mistake? I still cook her favorite meal sometimes. Out of habit. I still wait for her to come home and ask how her day went. I still want to protect her when she looks stressed or sad. But none of it matters now. Because the woman I married? She's not coming back. And maybe she never really existed, not the way I imagined her, anyway. It's strange how quiet a house can become when love starts to fade. Not just the kind of love you feel in your chest or between the sheets, but the everyday love. The shared laughter in the kitchen, the soft "good night" murmured across a pillow, the way someone used to kiss your forehead without thinking. I used to come home and feel a kind of peace, a kind of belonging. Now, I walk in and feel like a guest in my own house. We still live together, me and Allison. Separate rooms, separate beds, separate lives, but still, together. We told ourselves we could make it work, that we were grown-ups, that this wasn't a breakup, it was a shift, a transition, that we were friends, family even. But the truth is I was still in love with her. And no matter how mature or reasonable I tried to act, it hurt like hell. It hurt to see her laugh with someone else. It hurt to hear her voice soften in ways it never did with me anymore. It hurt when she came home from weekends away glowing like someone newly in love, because she was. And it hurt that I couldn't even be angry at her. She hadn't lied. She hadn't betrayed me. She had just discovered herself. And that self didn't include me. I kept telling myself that I had to be strong. That I was lucky she didn't leave me completely. That we could still be in each other's lives. That I could love her from a distance like an old photograph tucked in a drawer. That someday, it wouldn't hurt to see her happy without me. But that day hadn't come yet. Instead, I threw myself into distraction. Work, gym, long drives to nowhere. And, of course, texting Maya. Maya became my escape. My reminder that maybe I wasn't completely broken. That maybe someone could still see something in me worth loving. We text all day, jokes, voice notes, little updates about our lives. She made me feel like a man again. Not just a roommate or a forgotten husband. And I started to fall for her. But that made everything more complicated. Because even as I was smiling at my phone, waiting for her replies, I'd hear Allison laughing in the next room. And something inside me would ache. I was stuck between two women. One who no longer wanted me and one who might, if I could just figure out how to fully let go of the first. But it wasn't that easy. A few days after I told Maya everything about my situation, she texted me less. Our conversations felt colder, shorter. She hadn't ghosted me, but the energy shifted. And one night, after a full day of silence, she sent a message that gutted me. Eric, I think you're still emotionally married. You need to figure out what you really want before involving someone else. She was right. And I hated that she was right. I sat in my room that night and stared at the ceiling for hours. No music. No phone. Just silence. Real, suffocating silence. What did I want? Did I want Allison back? Could I even have her back if I did? Did I want to build something new with Maya? Or was I using her as a distraction, a band-aid over a deep wound? And worst of all, was I strong enough to face the pain that came with moving on? I remembered something a therapist once told me during a rough patch years ago. She said, sometimes we stay in love with the version of someone that only exists in memory. And sometimes, that memory is what keeps us from healing. I'd been holding on to memories of Allison. The way she used to sneak up behind me and wrap her arms around me while I made coffee. The way she'd hum softly when she folded laundry. The way she used to write little notes and leave them in my laptop bag when I had tough days. But those memories were ghosts now. Echoes of a marriage that had quietly ended. And if I kept chasing those echoes, I'd never be fully present for anything, or anyone, new. That night I made a decision. I walked to her door. Knocked softly. She opened it, wearing an old hoodie, her hair tied up messily. She looked surprised. Hey, I said. Can we talk? We sat down in the living room. No one said anything for a while. Just silence and that awkward energy we had become too familiar with. Finally I spoke. I think we need to start really separating. Her eyes softened. But she didn't argue. I agree, she said quietly. And in that moment I felt both heartbreak and relief. We talked for hours. About the logistics, separate rooms for now but eventually separate homes. About the house, the bills, the shared routines. About our shared immigrant story and how we'd still try to support each other. About the fact that this was, finally, the beginning of the end. But also, about the good things. The memories. The friendship. The gratitude. There were tears. A lot of them. But no screaming. No blame. Just two people saying goodbye to something they had loved deeply but could no longer sustain. The next morning, I moved some of my things out of the bedroom. She helped me carry boxes. We didn't say much. But every time our hands brushed, it felt like lightning. Familiar. Intimate. Final. Over the next few days, we started sleeping with our doors closed. No more late-night conversations. No more checking in about dinner. We became something else, polite, kind, but distant. And I messaged Maya again. Told her everything. That we were now actively separating. That I still had healing to do but I didn't want to lie or pretend. That I wanted to see where things could go between us. Honestly, slowly but with hope. She didn't respond right away. And I understood why. Who wants to be someone's second chapter when the first one is still bleeding? But part of me hoped she'd give me a chance to prove that I wasn't just a man clinging to the past. That I could still build something new even with scars. I haven't heard back yet. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. But I know what I need to do now. I need to let go. Of the dreams I had with Allison. Of the version of me that only existed when I was with her. Of the idea that love has to last forever to be real. Because the truth is, we did love each other. Deeply. Fully. For a long time. And that love deserves to be honored, not dragged around like a ghost chained to my feet. I still feel sad. I still feel empty sometimes. But I also feel something else. Like maybe, just maybe, I'm finally moving forward. There's a strange weight in the silence of a home that's no longer shared by love. You can clean the kitchen, fold the laundry, water the plants, go through the same motions you did a month ago, but everything feels hollow. Like the life once lived inside these walls quietly slipped out the back door, and now all that's left is the echo of what used to be. Allison and I stopped pretending, finally. We were done tiptoeing around our truth. She was in love with someone else. A woman who could give her what I never could. And me? I was the husband she used to love, but didn't anymore. We still lived under the same roof for now. A few more weeks, maybe a couple months until the legal stuff got finalized, until we could each afford our own separate spaces. But emotionally, the separation had already begun. No more shared meals. No more late-night check-ins. No more pretending we could still be family. I won't lie, bro, it was harder than I thought. I thought once I made the decision to let go, the pain would start to fade. That moving on was like flipping a switch. But it doesn't work that way. The heart doesn't respond to logic. Some nights, I'd wake up and instinctively walk toward her room, just to see if she was okay. Other times, I'd hear the front door open late and wonder if she got home safe from her girlfriend's place. Then I'd catch myself, and feel stupid. She wasn't my wife anymore. Not in the way that mattered. One afternoon, I came home early from work. The house was quiet. I noticed a ceramic mug on the coffee table. One she made during a pottery class we took together on our first anniversary. It was chipped, a little crooked, but she used it every day. I stared at it for too long. A wave of emotion hit me, one I wasn't ready for. It wasn't just sadness. It was grief. Grief for the marriage, the version of me who believed in forever, the life we were supposed to build. And no matter how rationally I told myself that this was for the best, that she was being true to herself, that I deserved someone who desired me fully, none of it made it easier. I thought about Maya too. She still hadn't messaged me back. And I wasn't chasing. I told myself I wouldn't push. If she needed space, I'd give it. If she chose not to return, I'd understand. After all, who wants to enter someone's life mid-heartbreak? But it still stung. I started journaling, something I hadn't done in years. Just to get the noise out of my head. I wrote letters to myself. Letters to Allison I'd never sent. Letters to the version of me that still lingered in the past. That helped a little. I also started walking at night. Long walks through our neighborhood. AirPods in. Music loud. Miles and miles with no destination. Just motion. I guess I was hoping that if my body moved forward, maybe my mind would follow. One evening, I came home from one of those walks and found Allison in the kitchen. She looked tired. Not physically, but emotionally drained. She had that look on her face, the same one she had the night she came out to me. The I need to talk look. We hadn't had a real conversation in weeks. Can we sit? She asked. We did. Back on the same couch where our marriage began and ended. She spoke first. I know we've been distant. And I think that's what we need. But I don't want us to hate each other. I don't want everything we built to vanish. I nodded. My throat was tight. We were good, she continued. We really were. And I'll always love you, just not the way you deserve. There it was again, that sentence. The one that stabbed and comforted all at once. I know, I finally said. And I'll always care about you too. But I need to start healing. For real this time. I can't keep holding on. Her eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. I want that for you. That was the last real conversation we had as husband and wife. After that, everything became transactional. Who's handling the bills, which lawyer is drawing up the documents, what we're doing with the house. But emotionally, that talk closed a chapter. The next day, I called a moving service and began looking for apartments. A week later, I signed a lease for a small one-bedroom not too far away. Nothing fancy. Just mine. Packing was brutal. Every drawer was a memory. Every shelf held reminders. Wedding photos. Travel souvenirs. A postcard she once wrote me when she visited her parents overseas. I found one of her old t-shirts in the laundry pile and held it against my face like a fool, just trying to hold on to the scent. But I packed it all. One box at a time. On moving day she helped. Quietly. We didn't say much, but when I was about to leave she hugged me. Long, warm. Familiar. Goodbye, Eric. Goodbye, Allison. And that was it. The first night in my new apartment was eerily silent. No familiar footsteps. No shared routines. Just me, a half-unpacked space, and a Chinese takeout box I couldn't bring myself to eat. I sat by the window watching cars go by and thought about everything. I wasn't married anymore. I wasn't really single either. I was just between. Floating. Healing. I stared at my phone. No messages from Maya. I debated texting her again. Something simple. But I didn't. Not yet. Not because of pride, but because I needed this moment. I needed to sit in the silence. To feel the full weight of what was lost. Only then could I truly let it go. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of clarity. The kind that doesn't come from one big epiphany, but from finally accepting what is, instead of what was. I took a deep breath. I was no longer a husband. I was a man starting over. And maybe, just maybe, that was okay. A strange thing happens when you truly let go of someone. It doesn't feel like a clean break. It's not a dramatic cliffside drop. No, it's more like watching a tide pull away from the shore, slowly, silently, over time, until one day you realize the water's no longer touching your feet. That's how it felt after I moved out. It had been 3 weeks since I left the house Allison and I once called home. The place where we laughed, fought, dreamed, built. Now I lived in a modest one-bedroom apartment, a quiet corner on the 3rd floor with creaky floors and sunlight that spilled in just right during the mornings. I'd wake up alone. Make coffee alone. Sit in silence alone. And somehow, it was peaceful. Not perfect. Not without pain. But peaceful in a way I hadn't felt in years. There were no more whispers of maybe she'll come back. No more hoping she'd realize she made a mistake. No more waiting for a version of my life that no longer existed. I was alone, yes. But I was also free. Some nights were still hard. I'd scroll through old photos. Vacations, birthdays, random Sunday mornings with her wrapped in blankets on the couch. Sometimes I'd even catch myself smiling. Not because I missed her, but because those moments were real. And no matter how it ended, what we had mattered. I hadn't heard from Maya. I didn't blame her. Who wants to walk into someone else's heartbreak? Who wants to be the rebound or the fixer for a man who just untangled a decade of shared history? Still, I missed her. Not in the same way I missed Allison. But in the quiet moments, I'd remember her voice, her laugh, the way she made me feel seen. And part of me wished I'd met her under different circumstances, when I was whole, not bleeding. Then one morning it happened. I was getting ready for work, brushing my teeth, when my phone buzzed on the counter. A simple notification. Maya, hey. Just checking in. How are you doing? I froze. My heart beat a little faster. I stared at the message longer than I should have, unsure what to say. I didn't want to overshare, didn't want to pretend I was perfectly fine either. So I replied honestly. Hey. I'm doing okay. Healing. Learning. Alone but not lonely. Thank you for checking in. It means more than you know. She replied a few hours later. Maya, I was thinking about you. I wasn't sure if I should reach out. I know your situation was complicated. But I also know you're a good man, Eric. I hope you're being kind to yourself. I smiled. That was all it took to light a spark inside me again. Not hope for a new relationship, not some grand idea of love, but just warmth. Human connection. Someone out there cared. And right now that was enough. We started texting again. Slowly. Gently. Like people who knew the value of patience. She didn't ask for promises. I didn't rush to define anything. We just talked. Shared music. Memes. Thoughts. In the meantime, I kept building my new life. I started going to therapy regularly. I opened up in ways I hadn't before, not even with Allison. I talked about my self-esteem, my fear of abandonment, the deep cracks I had always covered with routine and love. I unpacked not just the end of my marriage but the version of myself I had tied to it. I started lifting again, not to punish myself but because it felt good. I cooked for myself. Went to bookstores alone. Took long drives with no destination just because I could. I reconnected with a couple of old friends I had lost touch with over the years, friends I once drifted from because I'd been so consumed with being the perfect husband. I wasn't trying to reinvent myself. I was trying to remember myself. And slowly I began to feel like a man who had something to offer again, not because of the love I could give someone else, but because I was learning to give that love to myself first. A few weeks later, Maya and I agreed to meet. It wasn't a date. Not officially. Just two people sitting across from each other at a small cafe, talking like old friends who had somehow skipped the middle of the story and were circling back to page 1. She looked beautiful. Calm. Present. You look lighter, she said. Not sad. Just at peace. I nodded. I think I am. For the first time in a long time. We talked for hours. No pressure. No expectations. Just two people being real. When we said goodbye, we hugged. Not like lovers. Not yet. Just people who understood each other. Who respected each other's journey. And that night, I didn't replay the conversation over and over, wondering what it meant. I just smiled and slept. I don't know what the future holds for me and Maya. Maybe we'll grow into something real. Maybe we'll remain friends. Or maybe life will take us in different directions. But what I do know is this: I'm finally ready for whatever comes next. Because I did the hard thing. I let go. I stopped trying to force something to work just because it once made me happy. I stopped believing that love meant holding on no matter what. Sometimes love means letting someone go so they can be who they truly are, and giving yourself permission to do the same. Allison and I? We still message occasionally. Is polite, distant, respectful. She's happy with her partner. And I genuinely hope it lasts. I really do. But I don't miss her anymore. Not in that aching, soul-deep way. What I do miss is the man I used to be, the one who didn't know how strong he could be until he had no other choice. And now, I'm learning to love that man. I'm not healed. Not fully. Maybe I never will be. But I'm healing. One quiet morning at a time.